I personally believe sales is way more of a science than it is an art.
If you asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have been like, sales is an art.
Yeah.
There are like, these really creative salespeople that, are just magicians that are just like really pure artists and really creative and, are just exceptional.
It's just that they can close the deal.
I would love to believe that I can hire like 100 artists and make them work all together, but I know for a fact that I could hire A player and B player, give them an amazing playbook, and produce really great results.
How are things changed of how you look to hire?
I like really ask like everyone I meet, like, how do you leverage AI in your current job? And
Let's say you were interviewing me right now. What are the good and great answers?
The is I use ChatGPT to prepare for this interview. Good to great answers are like reps being like, oh, I like vibe coded in Windsurf about 80% of my outbound messaging that I'm doing myself.
You guys are hiring at Maven.
Yeah, we have like a hybrid approach, and we hire remote folks too. Hiring artists is like at scale is really challenging, but designing like an incredible playbook, really rolling that out and being really prescriptive about the activities, the gives, gets, resources that support each stage, building a team around that, I think is a lot more predictable.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vibe Scaling podcast. My name is Chris Balestris, partner at Vibe Scaling. We're a go-to-market advisory, recruiting, investing, and media firm, helping seed through Series D companies grow. Vibe Scaling podcast is an intersection of go-to-market, AI, and startup topics where we interview the top go-to-market leaders at AI and SaaS companies. Hope you enjoy it. Just had a great episode with Mike Donahue, CRO at Maven AGI. We talk about Mike's start of his career where he joined Square actually as a student at Columbia University when they were sub 100 employees, directly getting hired from Jack Dorsey. From there, caught the startup bug and joined Plum as an early sales hire, growing with them from Series A to D. After that, wanted to flex a little bit more on his financial services background, went to PayPal, ended up at a messaging AI tool called Gubshup, where he was the SVP of sales, and then most recently joining Maven AGI as their CRO. Based out of Boston. In the conversation, we talk about finding the career that makes you put your phone down for 4 to 6 hours. I really like this term. How to thoughtfully choose who you work for. The different sales learnings at the fast-growing companies that he saw. This athlete mentality in sales, this quote around score takes care of itself. Mike being a former rower, I thought this was really interesting. And then him being at one of the hottest growing AI agents companies. So where the AI agent use case is happening in customer support and where he thinks it's going. And then Mike being from Philly, we discussed briefly the best cheesesteak in Philly and why it's not Pat and Geno. So hope you really enjoy the episode. Dude, Mike, great to have you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks.
I saw a couple of things about your background as I was doing some research. You're a Philly guy.
Yeah.
Fellow Columbia grad. So can talk about that a little bit, maybe towards the end of the episode. But
love being in New York.
I was more grad school, just the overpriced MBA. You were an undergrad rower there. So I definitely want to pull on the thread of like college athletes and sports a little bit. But I mean, for someone that's as big of a foodie as I am, best cheesesteak in Philly, what is your Mount Rushmore of cheesesteaks?
Oh man, that's such a good question. Everyone says like Pat's and Geno's are the main two, but my dad and I would always go to Tony Luke's after like an Eagles game. And I really like Tony Luke's subs. That's my favorite.
Tony Luke's is number one. Okay, cool. That's what everyone says too. The real Philly folks are like, hey, don't go to Pat and Geno's. But
and you got to do the cheese whiz and like get it with it. And you got to do the real thing. But Tony Luke's for sure. Yeah,
and then you move up to New York for school and then make your way out to SF. So why don't you tell the crowd a little bit? You're currently CRO at Maven.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit more about your background for those that might not be familiar with you.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I'll just like start kind of like just how I got into tech initially. And it was, kind of a non-traditional path. I went to school at Columbia. I was on the rowing team. I was rowing on the national team when I was there. And I was the captain of our varsity heavyweight team. And I kind of needed to get a job. I felt like all my friends were starting to intern at investment banks. And I was really focused on, rowing. And actually, when I was there, I spun up my own business. It was called Dorm Prep, and I did it with some friends. We were doing room cleaning, dry cleaning, beverage delivery on campus. It was really fun.
When you say beverage delivery, was it alcoholic and non-alcoholic?
Water and Gatorades.
Got it.
Actually, our main pitch was to help like freshmen like boys move in. We'd pitch to like their parents and say, let your son focus on their studies and leave the rest to us. And it was great. And actually started, I was like losing a lot of sales from like cash transactions. So I started using Square to grow that business. It was the first time that I really ever like saw like how technology like really simplified business operations and what that meant to me was making more money in college and getting more sales there. And I just became really passionate about it. So through working, um, working and running my own business there, I just started using Square every year, and eventually really reached out to them, and they hired me as really kind of an intern or a contractor in New York City. So I would get like UPS boxes like shipped to my dorm room. I probably had like thousands of Square readers, and I'd be wearing the t-shirts on campus, and quickly like became known as like the Square guy. And it was a really, really fun experience. I got to meet a lot of the team when they would come out here. I would help support events throughout the city, like the Global Citizen Festival, or some things around New York Fashion Week. Or if they're rolling out new products, I would have a list of like 50 stores to go to and introduce them to like Square Wallet or something we were releasing at the time. And it was really exciting. So that really showed me that like I kind of solved that initial problem of like, what do I want to do after college? And I really, I like, for me, I was like, I want to work at Square. That was kind of what I ended up with. Yeah.
Such a unique story, especially coming from Columbia. I know from business school, and you probably saw this and what year, help us orient, what year roughly is this?
Yeah, this was like 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So 11, you start to see, okay, what is it I want to do next? While you're running this business, you get, understand like, oh, the Square is a pretty sweet product. And you were employee like sub 100 or what?
I joined them full time. Yeah, sub 100, which is really, really exciting. I mean, Jack introduced me like at the all hands, and it was just like real small team, scrappy atmosphere at the time. It was really exciting.
You've said a quote. Usually I don't like dive into like career decisions, but you are a podcast veteran, and I was able to do some good prep before this, and you said the way that you should think through career decisions is thinking about it. What makes you put your phone down for 4 to 6 hours? You've heard this. I've heard this a few different ways of like find your flow state.
Totally.
And it's really tough because in a lot of these elite colleges and graduate school, you're pushed towards prestige rather than ikigai or flow state or follow your energy. How did you know to do that and not follow groupthink at a school like Columbia?
No, I think that's such a good point. I think especially like earlier in your career, like that's so important to do something that you're passionate about. I feel like when you kind of enter that like flow state and you're really passionate about something, you really like, you just naturally go that extra mile. You naturally are more curious. You learn more. I saw that for myself when I was rowing, and I was like, I tried so many sports before and I was terrible at them. But then I like found that, and I found a team and a coach and an environment that I just really loved, and just my life revolved around it. And then I really felt that way about Square. I was like, wow, this is really cool technology. I really it's like a mobile app that's like really incredible. It's like, displacing, services that banks are offering. It's way more convenient than a credit card terminal. I've experienced this firsthand, how it really helped me. And for me, like, I think when you're, coming out of college, or my experience was like, especially like going to a big brand name university, is like, people get really like focused on these brand names, and then people are also really competitive. So they're like, oh, I need to work at this top tier investment bank to be successful, or this top tier consulting firm. And for me, I actually did an internship, I think at like some financial institution, like a small hedge fund. I was like, quickly realized I was like, this is not for me. And I really learned like to really follow things that I was passionate about. And I really encourage that when I talk to folks that are earlier in their career, like pick an industry, pick a company, pick a cause that you're really passionate about, because that like phase of growth and like first role is like so unique, and in like a way that you're going to like, it's a unique opportunity to like get a really quick start, and you're really curious and learn as much as you can, and just work for amazing people in those first few years.
Yeah. Let's actually, I wasn't planning on necessarily asking this, but I'm going to, like, I see this theme with you that there's this sort of try 10 things and then the 1 or 2 that return the fund. Let's just keep doing that.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing with you is like, you try to, I'm sure you were still really good at other sports, but you said B player or C player at some of the other ones. And then you chose rowing. With your career, you tried finance. I think that's like something that people find out a little bit too late. I'll speak for myself a little, where it's like experimentation, then go really deep on the thing that lights you up.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've done that in sales. Let's just like talk about this it sounds like you've done this your whole life of try a bunch of stuff, then double down on the channel that's working.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. I think like it like starts like really like broad funnel. For me, I was like, oh, I want to work at Square. I want to, work at this tech company. And then once I really got into it, I was like, okay, I want to work with customers. They didn't have, and I was like, oh, I want to work with sales. They actually didn't have a sales team at the time, so I joined their support team. And then I really like after 6 months, they started a sales team, and I really like kind of got opened up to this like world of sales, and like I actually didn't really know what it meant at like the really like spectrum of different sales roles at the time, because we were so small and we were kind of doing everything. And I think like there's just so many like different roles. There's SMB sales, there's mid-market sales, there's enterprise sales, there's sales management, there's being an individual contributor. And for me, a big path has been like, okay, just find companies and products and teams and managers and mentors that I really align with. And, the career path will kind of take care of itself as long as you're doing things that, you're really passionate about. And that will, I think, ultimately really lead to high performance. I think a lot of like, the score kind of takes care of itself in those scenarios.
Yeah. You said something there I want to pull on a little bit. It was when we were chatting, you lived at the Olympic Training Center because you were, you just, I don't know if you actually lived there, if that you were just saying that because you were like,
Yeah.
I feel like I was living there because I was training so much. But it surrounded you with a bunch of pros and it allowed for you to develop a filter for a high bar, high talent. You just talked about there of like finding the right people. Like tell us a little bit more of like how you think through joining the right team.
Yeah. I got to live there for 2 summers down in San Diego. And there's this one quote that I really took there that I just like love to share is like, there was this big sign in the dining hall that said, it's not every 4 years, it's every day. And I feel like that was like really the mentality of like an Olympic athlete is like not worrying, like kind of what we were just talking about is like not worrying about these like these destinations or these finish lines, but really focusing on like the journey and the process. And what I really like, kind of like took away from that is like putting myself in environments where, I, where that like, there's this really great culture. There's a high performance culture. There's, people that, are really passionate about the work that they do, are, really smart, really driven, and really just like kind of love the process of building companies and the mission that company's, really behind, and the technology that they're trying to produce and what they're working on replacing, and really how they're like thinking about like changing the world. Like my at GupShop, our CEO Beirut would always say like dream with your eyes open, and that type of culture and environment.
I love that. How do you actually like specifically filter for that? So like that made me think of something that when I was interviewing to go back to startups after business school, I'll never forget this one quote that a CEO said. He said, when I was in private equity and banking, if I hit my number financially, I would just go retire.
Yeah.
Versus when I was starting a startup, if this doesn't work out or if I have an exit, I'm just going to do it again. And that to me was a sign that this is a job that lights this person up.
Yeah.
What are some specifics that like you look for with a company? Of course, it's like if they're working late and like you just tell there's an energy level versus when I was in consulting, you can just tell. People were like, you get the comments of like, oh, weekend wasn't long enough, or it was all the cliches that you probably see on Instagram.
Totally.
What specifics, or if there's any quotes in mind that you're like, oh, this person's clear that they are somebody that likes building companies?
I think that's like what you just mentioned is like really common of like high performance teams and environments. Like when I had the opportunity to be a part of some like really high performing, teams that won national championships at different times and compete at world championships. And like my biggest takeaway, something that I always thought about sports before, is like there was this like focus on winning, or like, are we going to win this race, or, how's it going to play out? And I noticed like on the highest performing teams that I was on, like there was really this like mindset of like, just practice as hard as you can and then just show up, and you'll actually be like, you'll just like be surprised with how well you do. And I think that like really translates over to like really great companies as well, like, and like really great teams, is like looking for like I felt like really lucky to be a part of Square like in the early days, because like that was an incredibly like class A operationally driven company.
Yeah.
And that was the standard for me. Like from like my first, like kind of like my first like real big role. And everything was, kind of built, up to that standard. And I think some of like the things that I really look for is like, I mean, Jack Dorsey like was, a real visionary and like had like an incredible, like one of the highest attention to details that I've ever seen in like a leader. Like everything in the office and the way we did everything was just like so well thought through. And I think I really look for leaders and environments in the same way that I think you look for like a coach or like a team atmosphere. Like, are these people committed to winning? Am I inspired by these people? Do I think they have the capability of like changing the world? Do I think I can be an A player as a part of this team? And those are like a lot of questions and kind of thoughts that
Sure, it's a gut
go
feel
through.
too. You start to see enough patterns of this, and then you're like, okay, you realize what good looks like.
Yeah, absolutely is like a bit of a gut feel, but that gut feel is really important. It's like, it's like, can you see momentum and can you see like change? Like one of the things that I'm always saying about startups, and I worked at PayPal, a much larger company,
which we got to chat about, because
which
usually when you get the startup bug, you don't go back to the big company, right? So I was going to ask that before I do, because I do want to pivot to that in a sec.
Yeah.
You keep saying this thing, and it's like, I think it's Bill Walsh, the former 49ers coach, the score takes care of itself.
Yeah.
I really like that focus, because I know when we're trying to build vibe scaling and we want to run a lot faster than it's just like, okay, where we want to be in a year or two. It's just like, no, just win every day.
Yep.
I really like that sort of like, keep your eye on the little inputs that will lead to the outputs.
Yeah.
I think
we could talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious just because this has been something that's been said. I know you being a former athlete, like anything you want to dive in deeper to like that sort of control the control. There's all these cliches I can throw at you, but
I just think I think attention to detail is like one of the most important things when like building go-to-market teams or thinking about leadership or really like building startups. And I think it's actually starting to come up again, like now, is like a lot of like first principles thinking is like I feel like a big like buzzword that's kind of like emerged with a lot of these like AI companies. And I think what that really means to me and like what I've really seen is like right now we're in this like wave of like new AI companies, and there's different ways these companies are growing. I think the companies that are doing this the best are making it like really simple for their teams and like being like, okay, in this new environment, this is how we're going to this is like the new advantage that we have. This is the new way that we're going to operate, and this is why we're going to win. And they're being really prescriptive on like a new way of doing things, which I feel like is is like quite unique.
Yeah, would love to dive into that more when we chat more on what you guys are building at Maven.
Yeah, for sure.
And you joined PayPal, so like very rare. Something I went the opposite way.
Yeah,
I started my sales career at Salesforce. Really hard to break. I thought coming from Salesforce, I was going to be like, oh, of course everybody's going to want me. And then it's like that on top of the MBA. Startups absolutely hated me. I was like hard to break in. They're like, this guy is so risk averse.
It's just hard to break in general. But
in general, right. Yeah. And for you though, you went the opposite way. Like you were at, sub 100 at Square, but then eventually saw yourself at PayPal.
Yeah.
How did you think through that? Was it like chasing financial services focus? Was it like, I want to see what good looks like at a larger company? Like how did you think through that?
Yeah, that role like very much found me. So after Square, I joined like a 5-person startup at Plum, and I was there from Series A through Series D. And I was eventually the VP of sales there. Through those stages of growth.
Also, I've realized I just jumped over one of the biggest growth stories for you. No. So yeah, you were there seed through.
Yeah, I was there. Series A through Series D, and that was a really incredible experience. And I think that was like that was one of like my favorite experiences of my career. It's just like really, we were subleasing an office space like in like a small like corner of an office, and then like eventually like ended up consuming that office and then 2 floors of that building that we share with Asana. And that was just an amazing run. And I think there like it was like really exciting, like incredibly like adrenaline filled like 4 years. Really cool technology, like being one of the like leading two like mobile push notification companies during like explosive time of like mobile apps and growth there. And I think my biggest takeaway is like in this, like we kind of touched on this earlier, it's like this pursuit of like kind of just being like humble and hungry and like always being wanting to like learn more. Um, I think my learning from that time was like, okay, I learned a ton at Square and then I learned a ton growing this startup, but like to be an excellent leader, I felt like I needed to surround myself with like a lot of other like really exceptional leaders and like get more operational rigor. I think I was a bit of a cowboy, uh, during like the Lean Plum days of just, really early stage startup requires that scrappiness. But now as I wanted to like, I think like really look at like a broader skill set, I was like, okay, I want to work directly for some folks that were CEOs of publicly traded companies. I want to see how they drive operations through a 20,000 person organization. I want to work alongside really great leaders that had amazing acquisitions with their startups and join PayPal and learn from them. And also something that like really called to me is they approached me with this role to lead go to market and commercialization, and it was really centered around launching new companies and new products within PayPal with marketing technology, something I had done before. And then I was also a financial services company, and I had this experience working at Square, and I was like, oh, well, if I like were to design any role based off my past experience and what I can bring to the table and what I can learn, like this seems like the perfect equation. And it was a great time there. I really enjoyed it.
On paper, that sound like at least the Lean Plum run. Let's take a step back on that. A to D, that sounds amazing. There must have been things though that while it was going on that were like a huge headache that you came out and like you learned from it. What were some things that were like the biggest challenges during that 4-year run at Lean Plum?
I think for me personally, it was like, solving a lot of problems for the first time, right? We started in a San Francisco office, and then we opened up a New York City office and starting that from scratch. And then we opened up a sales team in EMEA. And then we opened up a sales team in APAC, and really like, building a global business that pretty much ran 24/7, 24 hours a day, across 4 different time zones, and, hiring a really great leadership team, and, building a 100-person go-to-market org. And I think like, when you do a lot of these things for like the first time and you face these like challenges, like it's hard. You're constantly, you're relying on, some gut instincts, you're relying on data, but, just naturally, you just haven't done these things before. So it's quite challenging. That's why like, during that time, I like relied a lot on mentorship, and had some really great people in my corner who I built relationships with and learned a ton from. And we can dive in more if you want.
Well, I was going to say, maybe my notes steer me wrong, but Todd, or who's the VP of sales at Netscape that you worked with?
I worked with.
Reported to Steve Jobs. And then I love this quote that like a lot of the leaders that you've worked with before, it's like, we could pivot to it sounds like you think of sales as more of a science, but before we even get into that, tell us more about like the leaders you've worked for and the things you've taken away from it.
Yeah, I think like the survival skill in like from that like Lean Plum run was like 2 things, like finding really great mentors, and then also like really building a leadership or team around you that you feel like compensated for like areas that, you might not be as strong in, and you build like a really like holistic team where you have like just like a superstar bench. Like I think this like maybe like the Lakers or like some of these like explosive basketball teams. Now is like you really find like others that complement you well, and you really like round out a great leadership team. So like Todd was an amazing mentor, and still is for me. He worked at Netscape, and he was their VP of sales. There's this one quote I love that Jim Barksdale, the CEO of Netscape, said is, if you come to me with opinion, mine will always win. If you come to me with data, you have a chance. And then, there were a lot of other, really amazing folks that, were on our leadership team there that ended up, going on to do amazing things. And it was really,
there's a lot of consistent patterns in a lot of what you say in a good way. It's just very consistent. You look at sales very linearly, with like, hey, step after step of a workflow in order to get somewhere. And that's how you build a sales play. I mean, before we even jump into maybe how you think about building teams, building sales playbooks, tell us a little bit more, because I wrote an article that said, I personally believe sales is way more of a science than it is an art.
Yeah.
The art part's the cherry on top.
Sure.
But we had Jack Ashy on a couple weeks ago, VP of Sales at Avoca, very much disagreed with me. He says all roads point back to the steak dinner. I feel like we're all saying a lot of the same stuff, but it sounds like you think of sales more linearly as a science as I do. Tell us a little bit more about like this data piece that you had said with Todd and all that.
Yeah. If you asked me this question 15 years ago, I would have been like, sales is an art.
Yeah.
There are like, these really creative salespeople that, are just magicians that are just like really pure artists and really creative and, are just exceptional at like closing
just like
massive
some
deals.
Salespeople with Kennedy hair and pilot voice.
Yeah.
It's just that they can close the deal.
Yeah. And there definitely are people like that for sure. I was talking to, like another CRO recently, and he like described these people as like Renaissance reps that are like really great early stage sales folks that are just artists, and they like build the playbooks and do everything at the early stage. And that's great. And there's like tons of them, and they're really, really important. I also like was definitely like more of a, like artist type sales profile when I like first started and really believed in that. But what I really saw like through my career is like, I believe like, sales is more of a science, especially from a leadership perspective, because especially when you're selling across segments and you're selling across geos, you really need to have like consistency. So I think like the seed to A stage of a startup is like definitely like very like artistry, but once you reach like Series B and beyond and start scaling your team, like headcount's expensive, and you're bringing a lot of folks on, and like you have a duty to like help them be successful and a lot really like enable them to grow the company. And I think like especially once you start reaching scale and building teams, like you really need to approach it with a scientific perspective. You need to really build like great sales playbooks that are repeatable. Like you need to be a really great coach and helping people, guiding them through how to run a really great sales process. I would love to believe that I can hire like 100, artists and make them work all together. But I know for a fact that I can hire, 100, A player and B player, reps, give them an amazing playbook and produce really great results. And when I think about like what you mentioned earlier, of like what's inside your control and what's outside of your control, like hiring artists is at scale is really challenging, but designing like an incredible playbook and, really rolling that out and being really prescriptive about the activities, the gives, gets, resources that support each stage, and, building a team around that, I think is a lot more predictable. And that's something I've like definitely embraced throughout my career. Yeah.
The reason why I really appreciate that response is because we see this a lot of time in seed through Series A companies where they'll want to play hot potato sometimes with sales.
Yeah.
And good has not been established yet. And
Yep.
they're like, we want sales to come in and solve the miracle that might be product market fit, or at least this repeatability of revenue, because we just raised around and we need to show that.
Yep.
And I'm curious, how have you seen maybe the good and bad with not having a playbook? Because I agree with that. And that could take that however you want, with later stage, with earlier stage.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Like the first thing, like I always like say, like the first thing you need is like a plan. That's probably the one thing I like talk to like sales reps and managers, is just like really ensuring like we always have a plan. Like I have to have a plan, our managers have to have a plan, our reps have to have a plan. And, I think that's like kind of like the core of a playbook. Like a playbook is really, breaking apart, a deal into individual stages and focusing on winning each individual stage, and like the tactics and strategy amongst those like individual stages. And this is the first like exercise I do when I work with like any like founder or early stage company, is like really like distilling, what is working. Like let's get just like a baseline for, a playbook or a sales stage matrix. And like, let's like really write that down. And then let's optimize from there. And what really that goes from like psychologically is you're like, okay, I'm, winning this deal, or I'm losing this deal, or, this AE is good or bad, to no, we're really good at stage 1. We're really good at stage 2. Stage 3, we have really bad conversion rates. So, hey, let's really focus on that. And let's like build like an amazing stage 3, and let's like coach our teams, and let's like really focus on, how we can, win this stage 3, which is like maybe a demo or some type of, activity. And I find that it's like a lot of like building companies and building like sales and go-to-market teams is about like getting, and like something we like touched on earlier is just like getting like marginal rates of improvement every day. And I find the more that you can break that down into steps, like the more progress you can make, the more you can coach people. And that just like leads to bigger wins and bigger outcomes.
Yeah, as you said, and as Jack Dorsey said when you were at Square, from heart surgery to tying your shoes, you're just following steps.
Yeah.
So your job, you just, it's as simple as like, hey, let's at least start to document it out in a linear process, and then we can go from there, see what's working, what's not. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. Like, yeah. On our, like for all the early employees, they gave this book out called like the Checklist Manifesto. And that was like the,
Is that a sales specific book, or is that?
I find I've met a lot of sales leaders that really like it, but it's not a sales specific book. But Jack, it was in our like welcome box for like the really early employees. We all got a copy of this book, and basically it's that quote you mentioned of like every process from like tying your shoes or doing a heart surgery, like no matter like how complex like the workflow, it's really just following a simple amount of steps. And I think like the more that you can like really break things down into like like tangible actions to achieve an outcome, that's like a really productive way of like, designing a great process and coaching and enabling teams. And it's like a book I really encourage all salespeople.
Any other books or podcasts you'd recommend?
Yeah.
That
well, this is a great podcast.
Yeah, the Vibe Scaling podcast, up and comer.
Yeah. I think like Pavilion has a lot of really great.
The top line is on my weekly rotation.
Yeah, they have some good ones. I think like 20 VC, 20 sales. Yeah, there's a lot of good podcasts out there.
Yeah. Cool. Checklist Manifesto. I'm gonna add it to my list. So
Totally.
You had some good runs at both Lean Plum and then Gupshup. How did you know, actually, like before we move off the Lean Plum, what are maybe some final learnings that you had there? I mean, that like A through D, like how did the business change from when you were there at A versus D? And when did you know like, hey, it's time for me to maybe look for a new opportunity?
Yeah. It was like really hard because it was really hard. I think something that's been consistent for me with like approaching new opportunities is that there's this like, I feel like I kind of like left it all out on the water, and I'm like really happy with like the work I did there. And I feel like it's like kind of there. It reached a point where I feel like just kind of the growth curve of the company, maybe slowed down a little bit. And we entered this like phase of growth where like we needed like more, experienced leadership. We brought in like a CRO from who had like a background of like Siebel Systems. And I think for me, like I felt like I wanted to like find my next mountain. I was like, okay, I'm ready. I feel like I'm kind of doing the same thing over and over again for really like too long amount of time that I'm like, okay, I want to go and learn something else. And I want to learn and build a new skill set. So at that point, I felt like I had been there for 4 years, and I was like ready to like build this new muscle and this new skill set and be like, and transform like this startup acumen and startup history into like a more like operational skill set, and like really learn how to like work within a big shop and run and manage a really large team, which was great and prepared me really well for Gupshup.
Yeah. And we briefly touched on the PayPal story. Then you're like, hey, I actually want to go back to maybe a smaller company.
Yeah.
But it seems like you're threading a similar sort of industry focus, or at least in a use case of like this messaging platform, because that was like Lean Plum and then into Gupshup. I guess tell us, okay, you're at PayPal, you try that. Hey, I'm going to combine financial services along with being at a little bit larger of a company, but I see myself as more of a startup dog, if you will. So let me go back to the smaller company. What were you thinking of making that transition?
We were managing a pretty large business at PayPal. It was well over $300 million in revenue. And, what I was really, I kind of had that like hunger to be, the revenue leader of a company, where like we were like leading business units within PayPal. And I think like first and foremost, like I spoke with a lot of companies when I was considering a change, is like I really like looked for like great leadership and like a really like great coach in that way and partner. And there was a combination of that, and like this was like a leapfrog in the technology. so like Gupshup had their CEO was this, and still is Beirut Sheth. He was a silver medalist at IIT Bombay in computer science. I learned so much, from working with him. He was also like a PhD at MIT. He was like one of the top students in India growing
Founded
up.
Upwork, you were saying.
Yeah, he founded
Yeah.
Upwork
Yep.
as well, and the technology as well, and following this trend of messaging, was really building like conversational messaging, and they had about 80% of the market share of WhatsApp business messaging, and we were building conversational agents on WhatsApp. So we were leveraging.
What year is this? This is like
This was 3 years ago. Yeah, it's like
this is before the boom.
Yeah, this was like right
So
at
you
the-
were like early from most people in my network to make that move into AI native or AI agents, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really saw with the technology, like one of the things I was most excited about with Plum was like the enablement of like a mobile SDK, which enabled real-time segmentation and real-time messaging, and the access to LLMs and building, AI-based messaging is like even a huge step change beyond that. So like I really believed in the product, and the technology that we were building at that time, and time has proven that that market's just absolutely exploded.
Yeah.
And growing. So like, I know we talked to a lot of people and strategy, but like, really focusing and like believing in the technology and the products that you're building has also been a really big theme for me too.
What was it? It sounds like it was the tech space or the generative nature of technology like that. For me, because we sold Einstein at Salesforce ever since back in like 2018. I just remember being like, AI is kind of fugazi. It wasn't until ChatGPT came out that I was like, oh man, this is going to completely change the world. It sounds like you were already starting to see that sort of the LLMs, maybe like it was pre-access to like GPT-3 or something.
Yeah.
And you started to see that. Was that little light bulb that went off that you were like, I got to sell this. I want to be part of it.
Yeah, it was really like this understanding, like on WhatsApp, like there were all these store owners and like phone agents. Like when we had teams in like 30 countries, and I would like spend time in like call centers in Mexico City. And it was just amazing. Like, what really like AI can enable. Like if you think about like kind of like the change, like, and I think this has been a theme, and I'll talk about this like with Maven too, is like there's just like a lot of limitations to human-based support that prevents companies from growing. And if you can enable like AI agent assist platforms or AI customer service or sales agents, like it just like in that same way we were talking about the Square story earlier, like just like it just gives you like endless opportunities for scale, and it's just such an advantage.
Yeah. I love that. So you were there a couple years.
Yeah.
And tell us and when did you join at that point? Plum was early.
Yep.
Square was early. Was this as early, or when was your entry point into the company?
Yeah, they were late stage company. They were like series F.
Okay.
But yeah, we
came in as more of a revenue leadership role.
It was
sounds like that's always been the North Star for you. Kind of like, I want to be a CRO.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there was also like, there was a cool opportunity of building out and prioritizing international markets. It was a really big global business, and I had the ability to build on that from my time at Plum and PayPal as well.
What then was the transition? I know you've advised some of these AI companies, and then congrats on the new role. You started last month as CRO at Maven, which I'm definitely familiar with.
Yeah.
Have seen them in like, the market maps of a lot of the end customer support. Mm-hmm. AI is booming right now.
Yeah.
You have a messaging background. I think what's also cool about your background is you've seen early stage, late stage, like you've seen it all. And then Maven looks like it sits right in the sweet spot of everything that you've been a part of. So what were you seeing in the market that said, okay, I think Maven's where I want to take the next step in my career?
Yeah. There was two things. Like I was the customer at Maven, like when I was at Square, like we had like multiple day turnaround times, and we could only offer email support because phone calls just took longer, and we didn't have really the staff to accommodate it. So I really like saw the pain point from a customer success standpoint. And then I heard, in the space of a lot of other AI native companies using Maven and using them to empower their customer success teams. And I really took a look at the technology, and they've taken like a really like amazing like platform approach, where I think like the biggest thing executives are really focused on today are like AI acceleration. Like everyone's adopting AI, but like the real question is like, how quickly can you use it? And I think the Maven team has like built this platform where you can integrate it within all of your existing apps, which like really enables like AI acceleration. And then just the team there was really exceptional too. Yeah, all the founders and there's a really large like cohort, including our CTO that is from Google, and like Google's really accelerating an AI today because of the way they largely part of like the way they do search indexing, and the team has really embraced that as well. And yeah, it's like really it's just like a really high powered team, and yeah, really exciting opportunity. And I just think like really understanding the problem and being that customer, yeah, just from like an early days was really is exciting to do that full circle.
Yeah, I bet. Let's jump into that a little bit. So, like from what I've heard, everyone keeps saying this, but I actually want to
Yeah.
hear it from somebody that's operating the seat. Everyone's like, code gen and customer support are the two biggest use cases right
Yeah.
now. Tell us a little bit more of what you all are seeing, and maybe just how like selling agents right now is, because
Yeah.
I think that what a lot of buyers have been saying, not necessarily in code gen and support, is that, hey, we've been sold these pilots and they're not really working, but I've heard it's working in support, and that makes sense. But I'm sure there's aspirational use cases that you all probably running up against. So like, what's the balance of the sweet spot versus like, hey, go on the journey with us. Tell us like how people are buying and support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one thing we do well is like run really successful pilots, and that's really enabled a lot of the growth of the team. And I think that's something that like every AI company should like really be focused on. This is new technology, and like to run a really like crisp, great buying process with a really successful pilot is like, yeah, really important. And the team's done a really incredible job at that.
Can we jump into that real quick?
Yeah.
So when you say pilots, it's they maybe come inbound, or hey, we're interested in this, or hey, executive has said gun to the head from their board. Hey, you know that there's someone in market.
Yeah.
You then say, okay, sounds like we might be the right vendor. Let's actually do a paid pilot. How are you structuring that? And it's like, rather than these longer enterprise deals, no, let's show you value, and you guys have some skin in the game with a paid pilot. Is that how you guys are structuring?
Yeah,
that?
there's like different variations of pilots, but I mean, it's really just like showing. I think like one thing that we do the best at is like showing folks that they really can get results with AI, and really like leverage and implement agents within their existing platforms within like 1 to 2 weeks, and really like see the effects. I think that's like one of the biggest risks now. There's like a lot of air in the space of like, and there's a lot of like folks are like seeing some like more risk in buying other AI tools, and like the ability to like pilot and see some like initial like proofs of life is really, I think that's like become a big part of the buying criteria as well. And I think just like another theme like with AI native companies is like I think like outcomes based pricing is like really.
Yeah, but everyone keeps saying that. Are people actually doing this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us more.
I mean, we price like based on resolutions, and which is like a big like change. Like traditional SaaS companies are buying off of seats and then consumption metrics. And yeah, absolutely. Like,
why not just do consumption for now, aligning it still with value, but also making sure that you guys are running a good margin business? Like, I would think outcome. Do you run into issues where it's like, hey, we did that? It's like, no, you guys didn't. Like, is there some like middle ground that's like, what's the challenges of outcome-based pricing as you guys, or the learnings?
I think one of the reasons that like you mentioned before, like code gen companies and customer service companies are doing really well, because the ROI is like so clear. Like I can get an understanding of like every customer's deflection rate and everyone's cost per ticket, what they currently have, and then like prove that out within a POC, and like really optimize around that, and then like shift from consumption costs, seat costs, and human costs to resolution based pricing. Like it's kind of like it's like a huge savings, and it's just like a much more like streamlined way to buy and implement software.
And if you were to think of it, like the best way when I was learning is like LLM, thinking of like a calculator for words. Well, in a support use case, same with coding, things start to rhyme. People are going to be asking for password resets, or what's the 80/20, and then we will deflect to more human-based, or if our product's a little bit more technical. What are the use cases right now that you're seeing like people are seeing a lot of value with Maven or tools like yours in like specifically agents versus anything that's making current rep more productive? I'm actually saying like which are like autonomous. Does that exist like use cases or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just like inbound support inquiries, and these are like really across verticals, like phone support. Like I saw a demo the other day from like a Fortune 100 technology company, where a customer called in about their laptop, and they had an issue with their battery, and we were able to automate that process where they called in, they had an issue with their battery. We were able to send them a replacement, give them the tracking number for that, and then also give them all the instructions they needed to like really confirm that delivery swap. And yeah, like you can do this across different channels like phone, text, email, chat, all within the same platform. And yeah, it's like just a really big step change in efficiency in terms of the way that we're able to drive support outcomes.
Where do you see the agent space moving right now? Code gen and support. There's been all this chatter of the AI SDR and all that, and like Jason Lemkin's.
Yeah,
when he breaks down how he's using it, it's for like a low ticket value events business with warm customers.
Yep.
I have never been in that environment. I'm only in Outbound, and people have never heard of us, or it's high ticket prices.
Sure.
So maybe if it's not sales, where do you see like the next frontier on the agent side moving to?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I think like absolutely like code gen and customer success have established themselves. Like collections agencies is something that's in like on the finance, like in the like the cash quote side. I think there's a lot of there's some like buzz starting to form with some cool companies.
We're seeing that a lot right now with fintech, actually, with like these very old school businesses, insurance being one. We're seeing a lot of traction.
Yeah.
I think the reason why it's been a little bit slower is because the buyer is not as tech forward, but some of these are private equity backed, or they have maybe these large buying groups that are like, hey, no, now we're doing it. Because it's like, I feel like everybody's starting to have a gun to their head. What's your AI story? And the first step of that is like buying a bunch of software.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think like the like enterprise space, is like very, I like kind of like preserved. Like I think like ultimately like, like with like really high value tickets, like, for at least like the next like 2 to 3 years, I really see like, like kind of like a agent escalation path where maybe there's like some agents doing more qualification, but those types of sales, I think of like with higher tickets and like selling AI software itself, like it is more human led. There's a lot of integrations. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I mean, it's just amazing to see the rate of change in the last couple of years. And who knows what's possible.
Yeah, well, we got to keep pushing the narrative of AI SDR not happening so that we can keep our jobs anyway. So let's keep just be like,
Well, I think like components of the AI, like of SDRs are getting automated.
Yeah.
But it's focusing them to do like higher, like, I think like sales largely is about like time management, right? And like, if you're like, we have an SDR team, they're amazing. And what I really like see is like, okay, it's a balance of like how they spend their day. Like, are they spending their days emailing? Are they spending their days like doing research on prospects? Are they spending their days calling? And my belief is like calling is the highest, and like cold calling and outbound calling is like one of the highest value points for an SDR, or like doing like highly personalized activities. And what I really foresee is like a lot of like the AI SDR being like automating emails and automating like some of what like Clay is doing, or Clay customer, and doing like some of the enrichment, and then like really enabling, you to have a lean team that's focused on, a high value output. And that's like what gets me excited when I like see products that enable us to do that.
You mentioned part of the Maven team a couple of times now. You've hired a bunch of reps throughout your career. How is now, as you build Maven as an AI native company, have things changed of how you look to hire? Have they like, what are the interview questions that you're asking? Scope that out. Taking out, of course, you want them to be high performing and like, care about what you guys are trying to solve for. But how are things changed of how you look to hire?
Yeah. My acronym for hiring is like hunger, hustle, instinct. And that's like been really consistent.
How do you test for those? Yeah. Curious.
Yeah. Well, I would add with like AI native companies, like I do ask this, like I like really ask like everyone I meet, like, how do you leverage AI in your current job? Like we've actually established this like new award at Maven of like the AI Innovator Award of who comes up with like what's like every month, like encouraging our team to like share an AI use case and really like awarding and recognizing the top use case within our team.
Let's say you were interviewing me right now. What would be, let's say there's 3 levels. Level 3 is the best answer you can give, or the best that you've heard, abstracting away any specifics. And level 1 is like, I mean, at this point, everyone's probably using some sort of LLM.
Yeah.
And that answer is like, hey, I'm using Claude or ChatGPT to make a recipe of sorts. What are the good, the meh, good and great answers to that?
Yeah. The meh is I use ChatGPT to prepare for this interview. I think I hear that most times. The like good to great answers are like, like, oh man, I've heard like reps being like, oh, I like vibe coded in Windsurf and, connected that, with Clay, and I'm, automating, about 80% of my, outbound messaging that I'm doing myself.
I mean, if a
And
sales
really,
rep is using Windsurf and that's only a level 2, I'm excited to hear what
yeah,
level 3 is.
I think there's like a wave of I mean, part of like the reason like code is like, I think exploding in the AI space is like, it really enables like non-technical folks to, really leverage and, build like what were formerly, tools that were only accessible by engineers. Like, I think like another like creative use cases, we've had some like folks build like use Lovable and like build like really customizable ROI calculators. It's like really like I'm looking for folks that can like join our organization and come up with like AI use cases that can 10x our team. Like like can like really enable us to move faster. That are just like bringing ideas forward that like can be like enables them to be like incredibly resourceful and produce like individual like sales products that can be used across like our entire go-to-market team.
Yeah.
And I want to like put the spotlight on them and really reward that effort. That's one of the most important things at a startup is like really bringing new things to the table and building within your team.
What are the tools? You said you're a big Clay shop. We've had a couple events with Clay. I'm a huge Clay fan.
Yeah.
What are some other tools that y'all are using that, like, maybe name 3 or 4 that are providing 80% of the value you think for the team?
Yeah, I think, now let me think of like some like newer, we're doing a lot of like tool migration now. But yeah, like some of the like tools that, I think are providing a lot of value for the team are like Claude. We do a lot of like custom, like different, like Claude scripts. I would say Lovable actually, like as well. Like
is that more for internal? Because you've mentioned Lovable a couple of times. Is it like, they'll use it as like a good front end to be able to present something, maybe even before, because it's actually less effort and better visual than like a sales rep who doesn't know PowerPoint or Google Slides that well. Like to actually articulate like what it is they're trying to show, or how are people using Lovable?
Yeah, we use Lovable for like ROI templates,
Interesting.
and like ROI calculators.
And you'll show that. You'll
pricing
prep with that, and then you'll show it
it
to the customer. Like, hey, this is what we presented. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then it will allow them to interact with it as well. It's kind of like creating this new.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of like creating like, instead of just giving someone a deck, it's like allowing them to put, inputs. It's providing a deck, but then allowing them to interact with it as well.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool sales
Interesting.
tool.
I haven't heard this before. So y'all are using Lovable. One, it's like to help prep for the different levers that you can pull in negotiation before you go into a pricing call. But then it's sometimes then you flip it to the customer, almost how you would share a Notion doc. They're plugging in things. And
Yep. Yeah. And to get,
interesting.
Instead of like sending them like, a form, we'll send them like, or like a spreadsheet. We'll send them like a Lovable doc that's branded. And it will like be able to just like, provide a better experience. It's like
I mean, you don't have to no longer have to use the line like, oh, let me go back to my manager. It's it's right here. So.
Yeah, it's like the evolution of like a Google sheet, I think in like some ways. We also use Claude, OpenAI. I was using this tool called Quip in the past, which allows us to automate a lot of our different RFPs.
Quip, like Salesforce Quip, or
it was like a startup that was really focused on.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it.
Like RFP automation. And I mean, we're looking at a lot of different things right now, and really modifying our GTM stack. But I'm really like focused on like and we like did some like looking at like some different like call recording companies, and like I think like Gong specifically, like I've heard like a lot of different ways that what I'm like I think like my evaluation is like based on like, okay, are there tools that are innovating fast enough to bring AI components natively within their platforms, or is the best in class solution right now to stitch things together? And like, for example, like one is like on like Gong, we could use it like natively, and they have some like AI tools, but is that better than downloading all of our calls transcripts from Chorus, uploading them into N8N or in Claude and doing custom prompting, on all of those to get insights and competitive battle cards, value propositions, et cetera, from our just like from like sales intelligence.
I think for a
And
lot of
it's-
people, they'd want to keep it easy. But I think for like your level 2 AI person, you want to
Yeah.
use Claude because you can control the prompt in the project.
Yes, exactly.
And it allows you to get what you need out of it. And I've always said that too. Like I love Claude for anything writing.
Yeah.
So it's like, would I be able to have more control in an app like Gong? And I feel like a lot of these apps don't do that. They abstract it away. And it's like for a lot of people, they want to actually control that.
Yeah. And I think we're at this phase right now where there's like, I want to have the best equipment and the best tools to like enable our teams. And I think we're at this time right now where like there's a little bit of like innovator's edge where by leveraging these platforms and leveraging a lot of these LLMs, you can actually sometimes get a little bit of an advantage over buying the tools themselves. While there's a lot of innovation and change going on within the platform. So
yeah, and I'm sure you bring your experimentation. You know, hey, we try 5 tools and one returns the fund, and we go with that.
Absolutely, yeah. I am a huge proponent of that. Like, I really encourage like all my leadership teams to like we should always be trying like different AI tools, and the cost of one, not working out, it like outweighs the like benefits that we get from just like one of them like really working.
Yeah,
Truly, we can get like crazy like scale from the success of these products.
With a couple minutes left, let me ask you a couple questions. So I started to ask this one because I am a GTM nerd of just the different mafias that have been out there.
Yeah.
What's like a go-to-market team that you've admired?
Yeah.
Could it be in like the 2010s or even like the AI native? Take that how you can even answer both. Take that how you want.
Yeah. Personally, I just like to kind of take a greatest hits album from all the places that I've worked at and like just like really try to combine like a lot of the things I've loved at the companies I've been at. But if I were to think of like an external team that I feel like really like, I've really admired. I always like really admire my competitors. Yeah. To be honest.
Any of those stand out in particular?
Yeah. I think like, when we were growing, Lean Plum, we were competing a lot with Braze. And like, I really like.
We just had Pat Forquer in that seat a few years. Yeah. He had a 7-year run at Braze. So
I really
I'll give him that.
I think we were both like horse race in the like, from like Series A through Series C, like really horse racing the market against each other. And we were both like creating new pricing models. And it was like just like a really competitive battle, really growing that market alongside them. And like Miles Klieger was their president, CRO. And yeah, it was like, I really admired a lot of the ways that they were executing.
Was there one tactic that you think that they either out executed just the market generally, or that they did really well or at a faster pace?
Yeah, I think they focused on serving they did a really good analysis of like the entire market and like really leveraging growth on like the SMB, like high SMB and mid-market space.
I see.
And then developing a really great pricing strategy around land and expand. I think that was a really big advantage for them.
One sales tactic that has died a death, it does not work anymore, that used to work.
Yeah. I know you mentioned this earlier, but I think like the days of like sales dinners and like those like working as much are like not as like effective as they used to be. I think like now we have kind of this hybrid model or folks are in the office like a couple days a week. I like think getting face to face is like really, really important, but I think like what's like really like, just like building strong relationships through education. I think that's like really what it comes down to. Like, I think, people expect sales folks to be like much more consultative these days and like really teach them like a lot of, I think a lot of like executives are like, a little bit like later on in their career and they're like looking for kind of these like AI innovators to be like, okay, tell me why this is so exciting. Why is there so much hype around this? Like, what is an agent? What does it do? And like education is really, really important.
Yeah, I think that's it's also unique to the buyer that you have sold to. What I'm starting to learn, I've always sort of like I've sold software to software, like business persona software buyers.
Yeah.
The more and more we speak to companies that are selling it private equity backed, or hey, we have a conference in Missouri, and it's like the Plumbers Association. Yeah, those folks still like actually some of that. I want you to shake my hand. I want you to like, let's do dinner. Let's have a face-to-face business relationship. So it's interesting, but I agree with you that generally it's like
it's not either. It's both. But
yeah.
You've really got to teach people.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think that diving into that more in the best markets, or at least the ones that a lot of the people I know that are joining, they're the most competitive. So I think what it makes me think of what you just said is how can you educate of where you play versus where you're different, where we're focusing on, because especially in like, let's take sales tech, for example, super crowded space. So many people have come up to me and said, I need to hire almost a PMM to help us with storytelling, because buyers are getting really confused. It's like everybody's saying that they're doing everything, and
Totally.
Yeah. So that education piece is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The last thing, you guys are hiring at Maven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hiring in Boston, or what?
Yeah, we're hiring. We have an office in Boston. We have some presence on the West Coast as well, and we're hiring. Really, kind of anywhere. We have like a hybrid approach, and we hire remote folks too.
Yeah, great. And I would think that sliding into your LinkedIn DMs is one way to do it. Any other creative ways you've seen people doing that, or?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn message is always always expected, but I think like what really stands out, like. I think I don't know if we covered this, but like, early on in my career, like I'm like, just follow what you're really passionate about. I think I like got my first role at Square through like an unplanned lunch. And just like really reaching out and like, just like even like a consultative approach to looking at like a different role. It's like, hey, I'm really interested in your products. I think there's this, big opportunity, and just like LinkedIn or email, and just get in touch.
Awesome. Mike, thanks so much, man. This is great.
Yeah.
Awesome to finally meet. And
likewise.
Yeah, excited to keep staying in touch and all that. So,
yeah. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Really appreciate you giving us a listen. Give us a subscribe, rating, review, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Hope you enjoy it.